Good day, dear students. Today's topic is methods of teaching organization. And I'm going to focus on three issues: project-based learning, contextual teaching method, and case study method. The first issue is about project-based learning. This project method of teaching has a long history, which began in France and Italy in the 16th-17th centuries. It was used by architects and engineers to train their apprentices. In 1918, the book Project Method was published, the author of which, William Kilpatrick, popularized this method of acquiring knowledge and skills in pedagogy. The new method, linking real life and theory, was contrasted with classical lecture-based teaching. There was a change in the role of students. They become more active participants in the educational process, and the role of teachers, they were supposed to guide the work of students, not transmit ready-made information. His ideas were widely disseminated in Europe and in the USA. Believed in the social effectiveness of well-built teaching methodology was strong enough in Europe in the period after World War II. It was during these years that the project method became widespread. In particular, it began to be widely and systematically used in the United States. However, in the 18th and 19th of the 20th centuries, project techniques have become under frequent criticism, which is explained by the heightened contradiction between their philosophy to make learning more flexible and interesting and the requirements of social efficiency. However, criticism contributed to the rethinking and improvement of the project method, which currently has many options. Talking about the specification of these methods, we can distinguish challenge-based learning, problem-based learning, place-based learning, activity-based learning, design-based learning. Also, we have to distinguish key characteristics of the method: long-term nature of the project, coverage of several disciplines or a whole specialty, contextual nature, collective learning, focus on the problem and its solution. The education project is based on the independent, purposeful research activity of students. Despite the fact that the research is of an educational nature, the methods of cognition generally accepted in science are used in its organization. General scientific methods include analogy, observation and experience, analysis and synthesis, induction, deduction, abstraction, concretization. Applying these methods of cognition in the organization of educational research is possible to reveal the content of education within the framework of one lesson or a fragment of a lesson without going beyond the scope of the thematic curriculum. The lesson implemented by the project-based method can be both an occupation of mastering new material and the occupation of consolidating and practicing the skill of solving education problems. The choice of methods of scientific knowledge that will be used in educational research depends on the specific content of the lesson. The main form of work in the class is group work. If each group work solves the same problem, conducting research on the same object, then it's advisable to form multi-level groups. In the course of a project lesson, or maybe a fragment of a lesson, there are all the stages that are typical for implementation of any research project. In the course of conversation or discussion, a problematic issue is formulated. The knowledge necessary for further research is updated, goals and objectives of the work are set. Through brainstorming, a hypothesis of research is put forward. The research method is selected. This choice can be made during a frontal conversation and independent discussion of the problem and hypothesis in a group, or it can be formulated by a teacher. Students working in a group search for a solution to the problem raised applying the method chosen at the third stage of the lesson. Then they analyze the result and draw conclusions about the work. The fourth stage, each group draws up the results obtained in the course of their research in the form of the outline, notes, plan, algorithm, and so on. The type of the reports is negotiated before starting work. The next stage is a presentation, oral presentation. Each group presents the result of the work in the form of oral presentation. The result of work are summed up and the assessment of performance of each group is given. The entire work can be allocated from 15 minutes of class to 2 academic hours, depending on the volume of the issue under consideration. Unlike projects that require long time frame, a project lesson can take place when studying the properties of objects, determining the relationship between objects, establishing cause and effect, relationship between events and phenomena, proving theorems and deriving formulas, participating skills in solving various problems, and so on. Essential in the project-based method is the use of methods of scientific knowledge for research. The project-based method is based on the development of cognitive, creative skills of students, the ability to independently design their knowledge, the ability to navigate in the information space, the development of critical thinking. The next issue I would like to present is contextual teaching methods. Sign contextual or simply contextual learning is a form of active learning designed for use in higher education, focused on the professional training of students and implemented through the systematic use of the professional context, gradual saturation of the educational process with elements of professional activity. The concept was developed by Verbitsky in 1991. Contextual learning is based on the theory of activity, according to which the assimilation of social experience is carried out as a result of active, biased activity of the subject. There are the principles of the methods: personality activity, problematic, the unity of training and education, sequential modeling in the forms of educational activity of students of the content and conditions, professional activity of specialists. Particular attention is paid to the implementation of a gradual step-by-step transition of students to the basic forms of activity of higher rank, from educational activity of an academic type of quasi-professional activities and further to educational and professional activities. Also, we can reveal some most important characteristics of this type of learning. The content of signed contextual learning reflects to the subject of learning from the very beginning is placed in an activity position, the subject of which gradually turns from a purely educational into a practical professional one. The requirements on the part of professional activity turned out to be system forming. They set the contextual principle of building and deploying not only individual academic disciplines but also the content of the entire training specialists at university. The experience of active learning in various areas of the educational system proves that with the help of its forms, methods, and means, it's possible to effectively use many problems that are difficult to achieve in traditional education, namely, to give the learning process a creative character that increases the interest of students, to form not only cognitive but also professional motives and interests, to educate the system thinking of the future specialist, including a holistic understanding of not only nature and society, but also oneself, one's place in the world, to form a holistic view of professional activity in its large fragments, to instill in students the experience to creative activity and emotional holistic perception of reality in the context of future professional activities, to teach collective thinking and practical work, to form the skills and ability of social interaction and communication, individual and joint decision making, to foster a responsible attitude to business, to assimilate social values and attitudes of the professional team, society as a whole, to master the methods of modeling and social design. Learning based on a contextual approach, on the one hand, pursues vital goals for the learner, is focused on fulfilling social roles or improving their personality. On the other hand, training is built taking into account the professional, social, everyday activities of the student and his or her spatial, temporal, professional everyday factors. Curricula are built on the basis of their possible application in life, and the basis of organizing the educational process in this regard becomes the individualization of learning. The content of training is usually presented in the form of programs and textbooks and unfolds in a variety of forms of activities of students and teachers. Lectures in contextual learning are problematic in nature. Practical classes organized as independent work, combine theory and practice through a business game, subject, professional, social experiences are acquired. Theory is mastered in the context of practical action, and practical actions have their orientational basis theory. According to some authors of the contextual approach, it means the integration of educational, scientific, and professional and practical activities of future specialists. And the last issue I would like to focus on today is case study method. Case study is a learning system based on the analysis, solution, and implementation of actions, both simulated and real. Case study is considered one of the best methods for developing analytical and critical thinking and creativity. It has also proven to be effective in distance learning and is learning in online training. It's also a method that should be classified as logical methods of teaching translation. The term case study comes from the Latin term casus, which means a confusing or unusual case. Basically, there are some analogs of the terms is used: case studies, business cases, case method, training by practical examples, methodological conditions, situation training, situational task, and so on. Learning from practical examples as a way of development has existed since ancient times. There are references to the description of specific battles and their analysis used to develop leadership skills in boys in Sparta. Nevertheless, when teachers and students faced the fact that it was impossible to learn the practice of management and business conduct only with the help of textbooks, officially is a teaching method. The method was first applied at Harvard Business School. An alternative to educational materials is interviews with leading business practitioners and detailed reports, description of situations written on the basis of how top managers solve a particular situation, as well as the descriptions of all the factors influencing their activities. This is how the training system was born. A practical example in the first business cases, the trainees were given the described situations that the real organization faced in its activities in order to get acquainted with the problem and find solving the business case independently in the course of collective discussion. Talking about general goals and objectives of education at university, we can distinguish the following: assimilation of the content and development of professional knowledge, skills and abilities at the required level, personal development of the students, development of analytical skills and the ability to work in a team, the ability to listen and understand an alternative point of view, the ability to develop a generalized solution taking into account alternatives, plan your actions, and anticipate their consequences. Also, we can reveal three main stages: data entry, data processing and work with them, presentation findings. Working with data can be divided into phases such as understanding and using data, analysis, application of professional skills and abilities, weighing alternative methods in the process of making decisions on a given problem.